Like a small boat on the ocean, send a big wave into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. Okay, enough with all that. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about the economic structure. First, we need to know what are the reasons in analyzing economic structure. Or in other words, why is it important to study the economic structure? First one, we need to capture the latest development and hence an update for planning purposes by studying relative importance of each sector and its changes over time. Secondly, we need to study the process of structural change encompassing the economic development. And lastly, we need to provide a balanced and also comprehensive coverage of the Malaysian economy by analyzing the specific problems in the economy. Then let's take a look what is economic structure is all about. The economic structures in Malaysia has been going through a large change. So what is a structural change? It is a shift or change in basic ways of how economy operates in the country. So basically, when there's a change in the economic structure, maybe there was a change, meaning that the economy transformed from being primarily from engaging in primary sector to the secondary sector and also to the tertiary sector. So meaning when you say it's a change, meaning the structure will transform from the traditional sector, that is the primary sector, into the modern sector, that is secondary and tertiary sector. So in the economic structure, there's a combination of three sectors: primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. So when we say it's primary sector, basically it is output from natural resources, include agriculture, mining, quarrying. This is the highest GDP contributors before the independence and also during early independence. Then we also know the primary sector as agriculture sector and also the traditional sector. Next, we move on to the secondary sector. It is we transform the raw materials into the semi-finished and also finished products that consist of manufacturing and also construction. Lastly, the second modern sector is the tertiary sector or the services sector. So it comprises of public and private sectors. When we look into the primary sector, there are two subsector inside it. The first is agricultural sector. It can be divided into industrial commodities and also food commodities. Under the industrial commodities, there are rubber, oil palm oil, and also cocoa. While for the food commodities, it's paddy, livestock, and fisheries. And then another category of the private sector is the mining and quarrying. The most famous ones are tin and also petroleum and also natural gas. Well, for the secondary sector, we can categorize it into two categories. The first is manufacturing and second is the construction. Under the manufacturing sector is the light industry, where there's a food and beverages industries, medium industries. The example is the wood products. And lastly is the heavy industries such as transportation, equipment, heavy equipment, okay, and vice versa. And while under the construction industries, it can compose mainly is for the infrastructure in industry. So it is whether you are in the industrial area, you are constructing in the residential area and also in the town areas. Well, and lastly is about the tertiary sector. It can comprised of public and also private sectors. So now here we say it's public services. All the services is done by the government and also its agencies. While for the private sectors, we can also divide it into transportation, communication, financial, banking, insurance, wholesale and retail, also hotel and restaurants. So these are all about the economic structure. Okay, now let's take a look at the GDP shares of agriculture from the 1960 until 2019. So in the 1960, nearly half of the income from our GDP comes from the agriculture. There is that was 45.4%. So now throughout the years, what will happen was that the GDP shares of the agriculture has kept declining. So now in the 2019, the share of agriculture is merely 7.26%. It's less than 10% of our GDP. So that's why we say there's a big transformation, or there's a structural change from the agricultural sector into the modern sector. So there was a shift in the economy from last time from the agriculture, it'll move into the modern sector. Let's take a look what is the GDP share of the manufacturing from the 1960 until 2000. For the GDP share of manufacturing, it began with the less than 10% of the GDP share of manufacturing in the 1960. Then it reached maximum of nearly 31% in 1999. Then it will decline to 21% of the GDP, of the Malaysian GDP. So it's in that from the agriculture sector we once be proud of, now we move into the manufacturing sector. So, but however, it's keep constantly stable from stagnant in the 20s for the manufacturing sector. What about the services sector? For the services, shares of services from the 1987 until 2019, you will see that it's less than half, is that 40% of the GDP comes from the services sector. Then it's more than half, nowadays more than half comes from the services sector. So more than half of our GDP comes from the services sector. So it's like 54% of our GDP come from those sectors. So meaning that the modern sector take over from the traditional sector. That's what we call the structural change. Therefore, we can say that Malaysian economy has undergone significant evolution since the 1960s, where it's from the agricultural-based economy to the manufacturing-based and also services-based economy. So this kind of transformation of the economic structure has brought Malaysia from the low-income nation to the economy that we are now. We are the higher middle income economy. So we are targeting to become the high income country status. So we can divide this Malaysian economic structure into two time period. First is before independence, that is prior to 1957, and second is the post-independence. Between there will be three categories. The first is between 1957 until 1970, then 1971 until 1990, And lastly is between 1991 until 2020. So prior to 1957, our Malaysian economy is categorized with the agricultural production and also mining production. So we exercise traditional economy, where is for the self-sufficiency and also commercial economy. So for the traditional economy is paddy cultivation, livestock, fisheries, where for the commercial economics we do the mass rubber cultivation, also tin extraction. During that time, British have made Malaya a major export economy in producing rubber and also tin. So these are two of our main exports. Now what happened after independence? So we see there's a shift in the diversification. We have diversified our export from the manufacturing, rubber, tin, forestry, oil, and also others. So it's keep declining. The agricultural sector has continued to decline. So until the 1970 until 1957 until 1970 era, the pre-new economic policy, pre-NEP. So we have ventured into diversification policy, horizontal diversification strategy. So we reduce dependency of rubber and tin. Then we also have vertical diversification strategy, where we have the value-adding activities by processing the existing agricultural goods. Then we come to the NEP era. So we have the export orientation economic strategy, we have small scale industry, we have the commercial petroleum starting in 1972. We also have engaged in heavy industry, and we also have privatization policy introduced in 1982. Then in the 1990 until 2020 era is Vision 2020. We focus on higher value added and also knowledge based industries in order to lower the labor cost and also become the labor cost and also labor intensive industries. So there are three policies: NDP, NVP, and also NEM. So under the NDP, we focus on the human resource development, while for the NVP, we focus on the fully industrial economy or industrial sector. Then lastly, for the NEM, we have do the investment in high-tech industries. Now let's take a look what are factors contributing to nation's structural change. First is there's a change in economic policy and development. We focus more on the industrial sector, and also we have the industrial master plan policy. We also have the ICT development, where we have the growth in productivity. Second, we all have unstable agricultural prices in international market. So the agricultural is prone to volatility of inputs and output prices, and also it also depends on the climate changes in elastic demand and supply. Then we also have the industrial sector ability to absorb manpower and also solve unemployment. So we move to the modern sector that provide more jobs of opportunity and also result in higher productivity. Lastly is the availability of resources for the industrial sector. We have natural resources so that we can produce or process the natural resources. Lastly is the structural change implication. First, increase in GDP and reduce poverty level. Second, reduce dependency on primary sector. Third, migration from rural to urban area. And lastly is the change in country's foreign sector. So I guess that's all for the under the economic structure, the overview of the economic structure. So that's all for now. Bye bye. See you in next video.